Okay, welcome everyone. Glad to have you all here for our March lunchtime lecture on the Civil War letters of Eddie Peterson. I will be doing some of the reading, but I also introduce for our introduction and lots of interesting facts our research assistant here at the Music Foundation, Philip Dunigan. Philip.
James Edward Peterson was born in Salem, North Carolina. He was the youngest of the 5 children of Karsten and Agnes Praetzel Peterson. His father had been sent from Europe to North Carolina as a missionary to the Cherokees. His mother was the granddaughter of one of the founders of Salem. A 34-year-old bachelor, he and his older brother William were partners in a cabinet-making business. Facing conscription into the Confederate Army, he chose to join his fellow Salemite Moravian musicians as a member of the band of the 26th Regiment North Carolina troops, playing trombone and/or B-flat tenor horn. He enlisted at Petersburg, Virginia on August the 15th, 1862 for the duration of the war. At the time of his enlistment, the regiment had already seen service on the North Carolina coast, at the Fall of New Bern, and in the Peninsular Campaign at the Battle of Malvern Hill. After enlisting, he served with the 26th Regiment in the Army of Northern Virginia in Pickett's unsuccessful attempt to retake New Bern, Hoke's attack on Little Washington, and the Gettysburg Campaign, and everything else for the rest of the war. He was paroled April the 15th and 17th, 1865. There are 23 surviving letters which are housed at the Moravian Music Foundation in the Boyd family. The letters are addressed to 3 members of his older brother William's household. Brother William, their maiden sister Maria Theresa, and their niece Henrietta Sarah Elizabeth Friebela. Henrietta tragically died in May of 1865 at the age of 17. The last 14 letters chronicle Edward's experiences from May the 5th to October the 3rd, 1864, and cover the period of the battles of Cold Harbor, Wilderness, Spotsylvania, the North Anna, and the investment and siege of Petersburg. The fall of Petersburg and the surrender are told elsewhere by 2 other privates from Salem, Nathaniel Schober Sievers and Henry T. Bonson, both of the 1st Battalion, North Carolina Sharpshooters. Now, the first excerpt I'm going to read is from a letter of May 17, 1864, from Hospital Camp, 2 miles from Spotsylvania Courthouse. And this is to his sister. I heard someone say they heard them play Hail Columbia the other evening. I should like to hear it, although it would make one feel sad to hear that good old national air, as well as it made me feel quite strange the other day to see the stars and stripes that were captured in that fight. It reminded me very much of the 4th of July celebrations when the stars and stripes used to wave over the speaker's stand in the square. Do you recollect those good old times? I know I do. Would to God we had those times yet. I can't but believe that they will yet wave over the whole country, north and south. Perhaps I ought not to write this, but I can't help it. We whip the Yankees, or our army does, but they don't stay whipped. They will come again and again. Isn't it strange? Like it was at Fort Donelson. They were whipped there, but they kept coming. As it is here, Grant won't go back to where he came from. Now, this next is an anecdote about something that happened to him that if the letter had been continued, it would be absolutely priceless, but he stops when it starts to get interesting. But it's very valuable nevertheless. This is about the 5th of May, the very first day of the Battle of the Wilderness. On the first day's fight at the Wilderness, before we had put up a hospital, when tremendous fighting was going on, we stopped with the ambulance along the road. As it happened, Generals Lee, Stewart, Wilcox, A.P. Hill, Pendleton, and a lot of other generals were consulting together just there. Several of us lay down immediately behind them in the pine thicket, where we could see all their movements. It was interesting to look on. They seemed to be considerably excited at one time. I believe they were somewhat nonplussed. It appeared so to me, as the firing at one time seemed to be almost in our rear. I saw General Lee get Pendleton to question a Yankee prisoner that had been captured during the morning. I was standing right close by at the time. He asked him how much cavalry force had been up the plank road we had come down. He told him in a real Yankee style, why, only a regiment of cavalry had gone up this road. The main force has taken the other road. The general then asked how or what force they had. Well, he remarked, some 40 or 50,000 had gone that road. He talked so independently, it appeared to me, although he was a prisoner. I thought he rather got the general. He never asked any other questions. General Lee would get Pendleton to put the questions, the latter stepping back a few paces to inform Lee of which answers he had got, and then step forward and ask another. Such stuff as this, I fear, will not interest you, though. I think I had better stop. Not so? What can I say? Well, he's writing to his sister, you know, and he thinks she's not interested in that kind of thing. Now, this is kind of a somber letter. Get out your handkerchiefs. This letter was written on May the 11th at the hospital camp near Spotsylvania Courthouse, Wednesday afternoon. And it's to his brother, so he's a little more frank. Death is busy all around. Numbers have been killed and died around us since last I wrote, and are still being killed and crippled. Grant has been maneuvering round all the time, trying to gain an advantage over Lee. This far, though, he's not succeeded, if reports be true. However, I think his plan is to exhaust us, which I believe he'll eventually do. Grant undoubtedly is the ablest general that the Yankees have sent yet by this route onto Richmond. All the rest they have sent heretofore have crossed the Rappahannock and fought a battle and have retired. But Grant has crossed better than a week ago, and he is still on this side, and no prospect whatever of his going back shortly. Monday night, we camped about a mile from Spotsylvania Courthouse. Tuesday morning, we left. Taking the road, we came marching about 6 or 8 miles. When our train halted, skirmishing commenced again on the road we came the day before. There, a fight took place, our division being engaged, which lasted until night. The Yankees had thrown up breastworks and lines, which our men had to charge. They succeeded in charging them out and drove them back. We had a good number killed and wounded in our division. Yankee loss pretty heavy, too. We took their wounded. I saw some 12 or 15 that were brought to our hospital. Among the rest, a Yankee surgeon. He tended on the Yankee wounded. In this day's fight, Lee Gibson was mortally wounded, Abe's brother. Now, Lee was in a different regiment, Lee Gibson. Abe was a member of the 26th Band and a close friend of Peterson. A shell struck him on the knee and mangled his leg most horribly. I've not seen a worse wound since I'm out than was his. All the bones smashed, the whole knee bone, it was all shattered to pieces, leg only hanging to the skin and meat. As soon as I saw his wound, I knew he couldn't survive. You have no idea how I pitied Abe. He took it very hard. No wonder either to see his brother die such a death was enough. He was brought to the hospital in the evening, and lived until yesterday about noon when he breathed his last. I saw him in his last moments. He died happy, I think, died very easy. How many young men, fine young men, I've seen breathe their last in the prime of life. I used to think I couldn't bear the idea of seeing a man die, but I'm hardened to it now. I can look on quite comfortably. We buried Lee Gibson yesterday towards evening in our camp. As we couldn't procure a coffin, we buried him in his blanket. I helped dig his grave and helped lay him in. We laid cedar bushes in the bottom of the grave, then laid him on those and wrapped him in his blanket and covered him with cedar bushes and then covered him with earth. The chaplain of the 44th Regiment officiated at the burial, read a chapter out of the Bible, and offered up prayer. I can't describe in words how I pitied Abe. It made me shed tears to see him cry. I sympathized deeply with him. The chaplain spoke to him very consolingly. We marked the spot he was buried in case they wish to remove his corpse. At the end of the letter, there is a kind of a P.S. We get no news from home at present, as no mail reaches us, no papers or anything. Please don't mention a word about Lee Gibson's death to anyone, as it will or might reach his parents' ears before Abe can let them know, and his mother is in delicate health at any rate, and the shock might have a bad effect. If you please, don't mention a word to anyone. And that concludes my reading. I hope we have something a little more cheerful to follow that. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Philip. There are so many wonderful stories in these letters, and I'll show you the letters in a minute. I brought them up from downstairs. But as Philip says, I do get some more cheerful sections to read. From September 28th, 1862. I must give you some idea how we spend our Sundays. We get up about 6, take breakfast about 6:30. At 7:30, the drum beats for guard mounting. You will wonder what that is. It's all tomfoolery in my eyes. It consists of this: some 25 or 30 men standing in 2 rows, and we marching. By them and playing a tune and back again. That's about all. I don't see any sense in it. After that, we have inspection of arms. The whole regiment is marched out into the field, and the colonel inspects one company after the other while we play. This takes about 3/4 of an hour. In the evening at 5:30, dress parade comes off. At this, we play about 4 pieces. The regiment is formed into line, and we march down the line slow time, coming back in quick time. This closes the performances of the day. In the evening after supper, we generally play a few pieces for the benefit of the colonel. You can imagine what our occupation is in the week. Every morning, guard mounting at 7:30, and then evening 5:30 dress parade, unless when on a march. This morning I heard our chaplain preach for the first time. He's quite a good speaker. He preached here for the first time when we were at Raleigh. Since he is here, the soldiers sing Methodist songs of an evening. It sounds strange, the singing, drumming, and fifing all at the same time, all mixed up together. I am sitting and writing quite by myself on a log about 1/4 mile from camp in a pine grove. The wind keeps sighing through the pine trees. The weather is delightful. Fall weather is the most pleasant of the seasons, at any rate. How I wish I could sit and talk with you instead of writing, although writing is a great invention. If it wasn't for writing, what would we do? From October 12th, 1862, to his sister. I sent some Indian shoes, some 6 or 7 plants, or stalks, with Gus. I may be mistaken about their being Indian shoes. That must be some sort of a flowering plant. You can at any rate plant them. If they don't turn out to be what I take them to be, they are at any rate worth planting. If you notice there is a bud or spout started out of the roots for next year, it may be a different flower. Maybe a pretty one too, and you'd better ask Brother Holland what they are and let me know. I also sent some other green vine or plant, and a yellow flower looked something like a straw flower. I guess that will be withered, so you will not know what it is. They are not much, however, if I ever find anything in the flower line, I will send them. So he sends flowers to his sister in his letters. On Friday night, we had a great time of it, serenading over in town by request of the colonel. I think the colonel has some idea of marrying in this place after this war. At any rate, he went along on horseback and told us where he wished us to play. The first place we serenaded was at a beautiful place. I never saw such grandeur before. We were all called in to take something stronger than water. The colonel, with some other officers, choosing to see the ladies first in the other room. They were singing and playing while we were partaking of some of the choicest liquor the county affords. I chose for myself some good rum that has slipped the blockade some time ago. It was choice. I don't think our clothes were suited to the furnished rooms. I felt out of place. By the way, Eddie Peterson makes no mention of the Battle of Gettysburg. This is just but a few days after Gettysburg, and he's writing to his sister.
Where from? Where's he writing from?
He is writing from, let me find, excuse me? On the way to Hagerstown. Thank you. July 9th. Enclosed, you will find a piece of moss, grown not far from the battlefield at Gettysburg. Also a yellow flower I plucked at Fayetteville. I see a great many pretty flowers along the road in the people's gardens. On Sunday, I stopped at a house where they had a century plant. The leaves of it, I guess, were 3 feet long, a beautiful plant. I pity the people where an army passes. They were enjoying peace out in Pennsylvania like you at home, and all at once, an army of 100,000 passes through and devastates the country. Fences are burnt where they camp, and the cattle and horses are turned into the most beautiful clover and wheat fields, everything tramped down, cherry trees torn down, limbs cut down, the trees ruined, currants eat up or tramped into the ground, onions pulled up, and vegetables, chickens killed, hogs run around the lot, knocked down and stuck with the bayonet. Houses closed up, the inmates trembling with fear. Bee stands robbed, the man of the house looking on, but has to hold his peace. I saw a lady at her garden fence. She had a beautiful vegetable garden and some men inside pulling up her onions. And the worst of it was 2 or 3 among them, and she standing and imploring them to desist, wiping tears from her pitiful face, they caring nothing for it. Another instance I heard of, these horses and wagons, they call it pressing them, is nothing but what I call stealing them. How can these private citizens help it, that this war is carried on, and why should their property be taken from them? They just go to a man's stable and take his horses and wagons and harness and carry them off, the women and children crying and begging them to leave them. One man I saw on Sunday, a German, he said he was a beginner, had about 20 acres of land and 1 mule. They came and took it. He was begging for a lame mule that he was keeping at the time, but did not succeed in getting it. How can we expect to succeed in carrying on such a war? The prayers of the helpless children and women is bound to be heard, and it appears to me his wrath will yet be kindled and poured upon us. It almost makes me cry to think of all this. I am innocent of such as this. All that I have trespassed yet here is that I ate a few cherries passing along the road. I confess that, and I don't consider it a great crime, as they are very plenty, too. These are some of the mad consequences of war, and it's so much worse that ours is a civil war. These people all are our own countrymen and have been enjoying the same privileges we have, but we are now fighting each other. Why is it? I can't understand. Do pray for peace. Rather, what kind of one? I don't care if it's honorable or not, but peace on any terms. I am not like a certain bishop that only prays for an honorable peace. Give me peace on any terms. I don't care for that. If I don't like to live in the South after the war, I expect to leave it and go elsewhere if the government don't suit me. It will be no free government, nohow, a regular despotism. I wish we had left long before this war commenced and gone somewhere else to a free country, but I must stop. I hope you will receive this soon, but I fear it will be sometime before you get it. Yours, Edward. July 5th, 1864. The other day, a soldier rode down a street in Petersburg and picked up a shell that hadn't exploded, took out his pocket knife, and picked off the cap. Then he mounted his horse again and remarked, "The damn shell wasn't dangerous," dashed it onto the ground. When it exploded, killed his horse and wounded him badly, so much so they thought he would die that same evening. Isn't it surprising that a soldier hasn't more sense than to know better? Accidents will happen. I never touch the dangerous missiles in passing. I frequently see them lying on the ground, but I always think best not to handle them. Touch not, handle not, as the motto used to be in the Temperance Society. I think these are more dangerous than liquor these times. I'd like to have a good drink of liquor now to revive the drooping spirits, but it's too high to buy now. Everything is enormously high these times and getting higher. A few days ago, ice cream sold at $2 a glass. Now it's gone up to $5. I had $1's worth yesterday. It tasted delicious. I heard that a train from Weldon would arrive today. I hope it may be the case, so we'll get mail. I'm very anxious to hear from home. Enough for this time. I must bake some bread for the evening, so I'll have to stop. August 10th, 1864. And so Benny Lineback is out in the war, and at Wilmington, little Benny. What is the Confederacy coming to? She has sure enough got children out to fight. Tell William he better change Willie's birthday, that is the year, in the church book. Next thing they'll take him. Did you hear of that placard that was pasted up over the enrolling officer's door at Raleigh by someone? It read, "Suffer little children to come unto me, for Jeff Davis hath need of them to protect himself." They didn't do censorship in those days in these letters. A great deal of what he's written would never have made it home. August 22nd, 1864. I think 1 week from today, tremendous fighting will have to be done. Mark my words. Men will be needed, but it seems they have plenty, or else they would stop shooting them for deserting. Today we had to play at an execution in our regiment as a deserter by the name of Wells of the 26th was shot. He deserted 2 years ago, I believe, and was caught lately, and was today sent to his long home. He appeared to be perfectly cool when shot, although we were so far distant from him when shot, we could not see distinctly how he acted. We were several hundred yards from him. I saw him fall, and immediately the blood flowed out of his breast. So you see, it's killing time in the Army. The Yankees kill our men, and we also kill them to get rid of them. These are strange times, not so? And a long letter that he began writing. He was in Greenville, North Carolina, began on March 30th, 1863, and the letter covers a week. He's writing to his niece, and I'm just going to excerpt bits and pieces of it. Beginning on March 30th, and it's important to know that March 29th of 1863 was Palm Sunday. So he writes, I was in spirit at home yesterday. This is Monday morning. I was in spirit at home yesterday, as I expect to be throughout the week, at the nice meetings you have during this week. I thought much of you yesterday afternoon. I was wondering whether you were confirmed or if there were any young persons confirmed. I was in hopes I would receive a letter from you stating whether you expected to be confirmed. I received a letter from William on Friday, but he didn't mention a word about you or Auntie. Tell him I am much obliged and will answer it soon. I was surprised to hear that Emil Schweinitz preaches. I should like to hear him. And a little farther on he writes, Today, 3 weeks ago, we left Goldsboro and haven't received our things we left at Kinston yet. Haven't changed clothing since we left Goldsboro, so you can imagine we are pretty dirty. I wish I had my dirty clothes at home today. Auntie would wash them for me, I know. I guess it's washing day. I wish we could go back to Goldsboro. There we can get news from home quicker, and you hear from us quicker, and then we could buy something to eat. Here at Greenville, we can get anything except occasionally a shad or two, everything eat up in this part of the country. We get nothing but cornbread and bacon. You can imagine we get tired of the same thing for every meal, yellow cornbread. After dinner, I've just now received my things from Kinston. They came by way of Goldsboro, from there to Tarboro on the train, from Tarboro to Greenville on the boat. Some of the boys were over there when the boat arrived, so they brought all my things along. I am very glad they have arrived. We have just hung all our things out to dry. They were all more or less damp, as it rained yesterday and the day before, too. I can now change clothing. And it's high time, too, don't you think so? It seems strange to me to see everything quiet today since the regiment left. Only a few sick men left behind. All you hear is the sighing of the wind through the pines. Just before dinner, we could hear heavy cannonading down towards Washington. This is Washington, North Carolina. But since it has ceased, it sounded like the firing of gunboats. I'll not close this letter until I hear from our regiment during the week. The weather is so changeable down in this country. One day, most beautiful weather, next day, rain again. On Saturday, we had thunder showers, and yesterday it rained at intervals all day. I was glad to see the sky clear this morning, but now it looks as if it might cloud up again. I believe the sky weeps at the lamentable condition our country is in. No wonder either. Think of it. In this memorable and holy week, such an enlightened and Christianized nation as ours is, to prepare for fighting and expect a bloody fight, too. It's dreadful to think about it. If peace and goodwill could only be restored once again between the North and South. On Friday was the day appointed by the President as a day of fasting and humiliation. I was over in town with Julius Lineback and Abe Gibson in preaching in the Episcopal Church. Quite a young-looking man preached. I was highly pleased with his address. His text was, "If God be for us, who can be against us?" He spoke mostly of our country and the condition it is in. He said this war was a judgment on the whole country, both North and South, and that both the North and South were to blame in bringing it on, and that God would not remove his wrath and judgment until we were humbled, and that he certainly would humble us, and if in doing so he had to kill every man, woman, and child in the land. Our sins were the sole cause of this fratricidal and unnatural war. I have no doubt but what it's all so. There were but few men in preaching. Quite a number of ladies, however. March 31st, so this will be Tuesday of Holy Week. Just before dinner, I would like to eat with you, but as we have cornbread and bacon, I'll take it here. Last night it rained pretty hard all night. This morning has been cloudy. But as I sit writing before our tent, I can see blue sky, a sign of faring off. The roads are very bad now. Last night I thought much of you during the reading meeting. We were lying down listening to the heavy firing. It sounded much like heavy thunder and continued pretty much all night. I just now heard that our regiment got into a fight yesterday on this side of the river, the 26th and 11th Regiment having gone down on this side. I have just taken a good wash and changed clothing. I feel first rate now. I have just taken my wash up to a neighboring house to have it washed. It's very dirty. We practiced some this morning. I wish you could have heard us. We drew a small quantity of flour today, so we had one cake of wheat bread for dinner, a change for once. After dinner, Gus and myself started out in the country to try and get something to eat, something like eggs or chicken. But it's useless to try, as everything is scarce and not to be had. I wished coming back I could get in our cellar or hen house at home. Towards evening, it is near sunset, and the clouds have all scattered, and the sky is quite clear. Very glad of it, too. Sam, and this would be most likely Sam Mickey, is kneading his dough to bake bread and fry some bacon for supper. Don't you wish you could eat some of it? I wish I could go to the meeting with you tonight, but I must stop with such talk as it makes me homesick. What would I give if I was there tonight and could stay till next Monday? April 1st, Wednesday. How nice it would have been if we could have gone home last Saturday and stayed till Easter. As it is, we're camped here to ourselves, have nothing to do, and could have spent Easter week at home. So nice. Our camp is at a very pretty place in a grove of pines, within 15 steps of a branch where we wash of a morning, and our spring is not more than 25 steps from our tent. The tent faces to the east, so of a morning the sun shines right into our faces. We generally spend our time in reading, writing, practicing, and playing marbles, and sleeping in bad weather. Such a life don't suit me. Maundy Thursday, April the 2nd, 9 o'clock. Beautiful morning. Clear and cool, somewhat windy. If wishing would do any good, I would be at home today. I can see you all preparing to celebrate Easter. This afternoon you dress in Sunday clothes, and at 2:30 I can see you and Auntie going up towards the church. Would that I could be with you. But I must content myself. This is the first Easter that I have missed spending at home. It sickens me to think how you are all spending Easter so happily, and I have to lay here in camp and waste my time uselessly. You have no idea how a person feels away from home at such a time like this. But enough. Yesterday towards evening, Charlie Bonson, in passing, stopped a few minutes. He had a package for Julius. His battalion is on the way to Washington, too. He stopped only a short time, as they had to go 5 miles yet towards Washington. He looks hearty. He's been at home quite lately. Today the mail arrives, and I hope I'll get a letter. We get 3 mails a week here at Greenville on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. April 3rd, Good Friday morning. I was disappointed yesterday. I didn't get a letter, so I'll have to wait until tomorrow. I wonder how you all do on this holy day. One thing I know, you don't hear such sounds as we are listening to on this morning. Ever since I opened my eyes this morning, I can hear the heavy discharges of artillery towards Washington. It seems the ball has opened in earnest now. Yesterday we heard that Washington had been taken. General Hill had ordered them to surrender, and they laid down their arms without fighting. I thought strange of it, but I suppose there was no other chance, so they gave up. But last night, Charlie Bonson came to our camp again from below, and he brought the news that this morning they expected to commence the fight. So all was false we had heard during the day. It's strange what reports get started. I will let you know how the fight turns out as soon as I hear. As to our regiment being engaged the other day, it's false, too. No news to be relied on these times. You are now in the 10 o'clock meeting. I am sitting before the fire writing. I wish I could change places with you for a short time. I guess you think of me today, don't you? The weather is not very pleasant this morning. Last night the wind blew all night, and this morning it's quite cloudy and cool. I guess we'll have rain again. So much cannon firing going on. I don't hear much just now. It seems they have slacked firing, or at any rate, I don't hear it so frequent as earlier this morning. A great day to fight. Good Friday. Hill is such a great Christian, I guess that's the reason he fights today. I must stop. I want to read the Acts of today in my Testament. Saturday morning, 10 o'clock. Disagreeable morning. The wind blowing terribly cold. Last night we heard heavy shelling going on towards Washington, heavier than any we had heard during yesterday. I guess more gunboats have arrived. The news are this morning that our forces had, in a manner, surrounded the place, except by water, that our regiment was 13 miles below Washington, throwing up breastworks and planting batteries to prevent the gunboats from coming up to town. And a little farther along. Will you have love feast this afternoon? Or is there no coffee or sugar to be had? Or is it made up by subscription like at Christmas? Does Auntie bake sugar cake for Easter like usual? I wish I could be with you in the morning to go up to the graveyard and afterwards eat good sugar cake for breakfast. Will it ever be the case again? April 4th, Saturday towards evening. I've just received your most highly interesting letter. You have no idea what pleasure it afforded. Thank you for it, and please continue doing so. Let me skip a little bit here. It afforded me great pleasure to hear that those Indian shoes I sent you gave you so much pleasure. Here, those plants again. I have no idea that they were in bloom already. I should like to see them. If I could be with you in the morning, I would give a heap. I expect we shall blow our church tunes that we generally blow on Easter morning. I'll think of you at home in the morning, if ever I did, and I know you'll think of me. Easter Sunday morning, 6 o'clock. We got up about 5 this morning and played church tunes 185, 132, 230, and 151, such as we had. I guess you are eating breakfast just now. I wish I could take it with you. Were you up on the graveyard? It's cloudy this morning again, as usual, but not so cold as yesterday. I've not eat breakfast yet. I wish I had sugar cake, as we used to have. He really is harping on that sugar cake, isn't he? I saw some beautiful sugar the other day at the commissaries, but only the sick draw sugar. He really is into the sugar thing. I think it's high time I sent this letter, as it's so dirty from handling, you'll hardly be able to read it. I want to mail it today. The news, should like you to send you the news about Washington in this letter, but I'm afraid I'll not hear anything before I'll close. The news are not reliable that we hear. General Robinson had said was wounded by a shell on Friday. Last night we heard the Yankees had passed our batteries with reinforcements. We hardly know what to believe these times. I have heard no firing this morning yet. It was also reported yesterday our forces had to abandon one piece of artillery, being shell so strong. I state this mostly as rumor, don't know how true. I'll have to close as I want to go to preaching over in town. I am quite well and hearty. I hope this may find you enjoying the same blessing. I'll answer Auntie's letter soon. I accept my best love from your affectionate Uncle Eddie. These letters are written on various sizes of paper, various sorts of paper. One of them is written on the back of a pass that allowed him to go to town. They're very difficult to read in that, say, for instance, in this one, the letter begins right here. He goes all the way down this page. He opens it up all the way down there, all the way down there, all the way down here, and when he's done there, he turns it sideways, goes down the margin, goes around the margins, in between the lines, and upside down. So sometimes just drawing the road map of these letters is a challenge.
Get one that's totally cross-written.
They really are. They're very challenging, and the handwriting is quite small. Philip and I have there are a few words that are as yet illegible in these letters. But they are quite a treasure, and it is quite a bit of history. Not your typical Southern chauvinist letters home from the war. This is a man who wanted to be anywhere except in the war, but he had enlisted as a bandsman because he knew if he didn't, he was about to get drafted. So, would that politicians and generals would have to read letters like these before they made decisions about war. This letter is written on a Bank of Wilmington note. He wrote going this way. The back side of it is a concert program, an order that they played for a concert, and it's written all in between them as well. Paper was scarce. Shoes were scarce. One of the letters he's writing home asking his sister to send him some socks. One of the letters he's saying that he's glad he has a long coat because he's been sitting so much he's worn out the seat of his trousers and at least his coattails cover it. So we are working on getting these letters ready for publication. Philip is doing all the really yucky work of chasing down who is who in here. Our draft of the letters right now has several hundred footnotes. Many of those footnotes as of yet have a name with a question mark beside it, as in, who was this person and where were they? So it may take us a while before we're ready to publish these. But they do give you a snapshot of what was going on in the life of one Moravian musician during a really dreadful time in our history. Thank you very much.